Hi there, this is Muzzclaw. I just wanted to show my finished motion sensor solution and quickly show you maybe how you could use it in your scene. And it works quite well. You get a lot of fine control with it, and it basically matches my movements pretty much exactly. It works quite well, and hopefully someone can get some use out of this. This is just a little test scene that I made, and yeah, it works quite well. I won't have too much time to play Dreams, I think, in the near future, so I'm hoping maybe someone can find some use for this. I'll probably noodle around with it a little bit, but yeah, it works really well, and I think it's really helpful rather than trying to figure out that motion sensor, the raw outputs yourself, because they're pretty um, pretty confusing. Anyway, I'll show you real quick how you can use something like this in your scene. If you want to remix this, look for something called Motion Sensor Gyro Solution, like this, Motion Sensor Gyro Solution, and you can remix this into your scene, and you'll get something that looks like this originally. But what you'll mostly get is this chip, Gyro 2 Directions. To use it, you'll wire the motion sensor from the controller to the top input, and the camera transform from the controller into the middle input. There's an optional input on the bottom that is called custom rotation, and it takes a scene space transform either from this camera, you can wire that in there, or from a tag. You can use the scene space transform from a tag. And it basically sets the default position of the sculpture or the coordinate system. So that's how things will look when the user's holding the controller in a neutral position. And you can attach the tag to a separate block and then rotate that block in any direction you want to set the default position of the sculpture in real time as you're playing. The flyer uses that to turn ultimately. As you tilt the controller, it rotates a tag and sets a different default position, you know, for when the user's not tilting the controller at all, and that's it. So you wire it in like that, and you get some outputs that are sent on wireless transmitters. A really handy one to use, the simplest ones to use are just gyro pitch, gyro yaw, and gyro roll, and those are just numbers from -1 to 1, and you can use one or all three of those at a time, and it'll show you how much the user is pitching or tilting the controller in any direction, regardless of camera position or anything else. So those are handy for controlling keyframes or animations, playhead positions on a timeline or something like that. You also get the output of the axes, the z-axis, the y-axis, and the x-axis, and those are directions in the scene that can be used as input to any gadget, like a look-at rotator. I just wire the z-axis plus rotation into the scene space direction of a look-at rotator, but you can wire it directly into other things too, and that tells it what direction is up now for the player after he's rotated the controller, and also it takes into account the custom rotation. So just to demonstrate right now, the custom rotation is wired into the camera. So if I move this sculpture over to the side, and it's still pointing forward in the scene, but when I look at it, it's pointing at me because the orientation is completely controlled by that chip, by the gyro. So it's always going to be looking at me. If I move the camera, you can see it's sort of moving a little bit itself. And that's pretty much it. If I were to cut that wire, and sometimes you don't always need it, and I looked back at the controller, you'll see it stays facing forward. It still is moving the same way that I'm moving the controller. Like right now I'm pitching up and down, and it pitches up and down. So if you need to rotate that sculpture to point a different direction, you tell it how much you want to rotate it by putting in a transform, either from a tag or from a camera. And that's pretty much it. Again, look for something called Motion Sensor Gyro Solution. This is a scene version of it, but just look for that and you'll see the contraption version of it. And that's pretty much it. Hope someone finds this useful. Feel free to contact me. I'm Muzzclaw, And happy dreaming, and I hope to see some cool stuff. Alright, talk to you later.